Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Progress Texas Town Hall, the State of Black Lives in Texas. I'm Diana Gómez, Advocacy Manager at Progress Texas. Before we begin, I wanted to mention a resource that we'll link to in the comments section of the video. It's a series of reports from the State of Black Lives Texas initiative at the University of Texas at Austin. This initiative is a programmatic effort conducted by the Institute for Urban Policy Research and Analysis that produces policy research and disseminates information about racial disparities affecting the Black population in Texas. They have reports on disparities in Texas like education, health, criminal justice, among many other topics. And now I would like to introduce our amazing panel joining us today. I'll start with Marsha Jones. Marsha is a Texas native and is co-founder and executive director at the Afiya Center. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and is a graduate of the Black AIDS Institute's African American HIV University, the Science and Community Mobilizing Fellowship Program, and Tyndale Theology School. Marsha had served on various boards and capacities as an active service and honor of Black women, a national grassroots organizer, community mobilizer, professional speaker, and health educator with a commitment to transforming women and girls' lives. She's pledged to the development of leadership and engagement of activism among women by challenging harmful systemic and political constructs to advance the economic health and safety of women and girls. Welcome, Marsha.
Well, that was a lot.
A lot of great.
Who is she talking about?
And now I'll introduce Miss Koretta Brown. Ms. Brown has committed her personal life and efforts to shaping the future of the criminal justice reform movement, fighting against mass incarceration, fighting for fair reform programs that will help assist newly parolees to adjust and learn to live, work, and enjoy a normal life after their release. Koretta has a long history of community service. She served as the chair organizer, where she was involved with strategic planning with local churches to take a community stand and register their parishioners to vote. Ms. Brown also works with the group Black Girl Magic in Houston, Texas for Harris County that elected 19 African American women as judges in 2019. In addition to her work, Koretta is a staff organizer with the Texas Organizing Project, Right to Justice, a program for change. She is a graduate of Ross Sterling High School in Sunnyside, Texas, a proud alumni from Texas Southern University, where she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Business. Currently lives in Houston and is a proud mother of 2 children and has a granddaughter.
Thank you.
Welcome, Koretta.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
And now, last but not least, Mr. Chaz Moore, who is the founder of the Austin Justice Coalition, a 501c3 nonprofit grassroots activist-led organization aimed at demanding criminal justice reform and building community at the local, state, and national levels. Before devoting his work full-time to the creation of growth of the Austin Justice Coalition, he served as a student activist fighting many social issues at the University of Texas at Austin and in the broader Austin community. Chaz champions efforts that deliberately meet community needs, like back-to-school drives, fundraisers for those who've been brutalized by police, feeding the hungry, and pioneering programs for Black youth, men, and women. As the executive director of the Austin Justice Coalition, he's continued to leverage his connections within city government, the police department, the DA's office, community organizations, and a myriad of others in OJC's extensive network to bring positive change. His work in the upcoming year will focus on the use of force policy, police association contracts, city budget, progressive disciplinary matrix for police misconduct, and mental health response. Welcome, Chaz. All right, so before I start with questions for our panelists, if time allows at the end, we can turn to questions from the audience. So if anyone watching has a question for our panelists, feel free to type them in the comments section and see if we'll have time for them at the end. So just to start off, we've been seeing an uprising across the nation and in Texas of protests denouncing police violence after the killing of George Floyd. What do these movements of resistance look like in your respective cities? And let's start with Marsha.
So it looks interesting. I'm really excited to see some of the stuff that's happening in Dallas because I've been in Dallas, I guess, all my life, since almost 60 years. And I've seen a lot of things to take place in this city. And I don't think I've ever seen it go so hard and nonstop with some very specific asks. I like the fact that I see some asks. It's one thing folk expect for Black folk to react. Something happens, we react, we get upset, we got to fix it. But this time there's a difference, and there's an ask at the end. There's an expectation. There's demands that's being made, and the people are saying we're not leaving until these demands are met. And so, with that, I mean, it looked really good, and I am extremely. I feel some kind of way about it. Seeing this, it speaks to what's happening to Black folk and what is happening to us historically. If people have decided that in spite of this epidemic or this pandemic happening in the world, it's like folk have decided, I'll choose my poison. You don't get to choose how I die. I get to make that choice. Because if I stay at home, I'm going to die because you're killing me. And if I go out, I could possibly get ill by those same systems that's killing me, even if I stay home. So I think it's very powerful what's happening in Dallas right now. And to see young people moving this movement is just really exciting for me.
Thank you so much, Marsha. Koretta, how are things looking in Houston?
In Houston, we've seen several organizations host protests and rallies in support of George Floyd. We see a unification of local leaders and council members join the fight to save lives by working together. HPD. We at TOP are looking to work with other grassroots organizations just to ensure Mayor Turner and the Houston City Council are providing meaningful legislation. Legislation that includes diverting funds from the police union, which ultimately increases police accountability, and also to form a new community policing system. So unfortunately, in the past city council meeting, Mayor Turner and the entire city council, except Councilwoman Plummer, shot down the hashtag 8Can'tWait policy that had been presented. And this is, after we all saw Mayor Turner and Chief Hart painting a different picture, the day before, while they was on national TV and at the memorial for George Floyd. A memorial in which the community, the grassroots community was basically left out because it was so politicized, But he stood in front, made some promises, and then did not live up to those promises with the executive order that he put out. So, we have some grassroots organizations that decided to stand together. And I believe in the upcoming elections, will prove our organizing efforts are going to be proven in the next upcoming election. So that's what's happening in Houston.
Thank you, Koretta. And Chaz, how is this movement of resistance looking in Austin?
I think it's a little bit all over the place because Austin is, the population of Black folks here is small compared to, I would say a lot smaller compared to Houston and Dallas, of course. And what we have is, a lot of newly woke white people trying to tell Black people how we should, come to the revolution and how we should protest and how we should do things. And I'll speak from my perspective, right? I think, 2 weekends ago, we had a rash of escalated protests that me as a Black person, while I'm down with, Black radical tradition and direct action, me personally, I don't feel so inclined to put Black bodies in more harm than they already are, which is why, we canceled that protest, because it was just a lot of frustration and a lot of angst in the air. But, I think in Austin, people are really leaning in. You know, I think one thing about this whole moment is that it seems different. It doesn't seem like just a moment. It seems like an actual movement for us to become better as a city, and as a state and as a country, hopefully. And what I'm seeing in Austin is people, white people, really beginning to understand that they just need to listen, and just listen to the people that have been oppressed for so long. Listen to the people that are closest to the problems, because typically they're closest to the solutions. That's what we believe in the movement. And I think they're finally understanding that, and I think they're understanding that even though we live in liberal haven Austin, we have some work to do too. So it's been a awakening, eye-opening feel, from my perspective at least.
Thank you, Chaz.
I wanted to say something about the political folk in Houston. I think that that's going to happen all around. I expect politicians to be politicians. So, yeah, and so I don't expect to get anything hard from them. I expect the politicians. So that's why I guess I didn't say anything about politicians, because I expect them to do just what they do, which is pretty much nothing. They're going to say what they have to say in order to get the people, to quiet the people down, because right now stuff is happening that they can't control, and they need to control it. And so I think they think that because historically, when Black folk have been harmed, they have been able to piecemeal and feed us little bitty pieces of food and satisfy us with little bitty things. And people said, okay, we got it. And then they lied. So I think politicians are going to do just what they always do. But I think it's really cool what you said, Koretta, because this is hard for me. It's hard for me to stand. It's hard for me to shut down Black folk, right? And some of these politicians are Black. And because I'm struggling with that in Dallas, I'm struggling with the chief of police here. I'm struggling with this. Not only is she Black, but she's a Black woman, and let me tell y'all, I'm struggling. That's all I can say. And but sometimes we have to push through the struggle, and I think that that's what this movement is doing. It's pushing us through the struggle. That we have to call it, even when it's folk that should be understanding what our experience is. We got to hold them to that same level that we would hold folk who don't look like us. And I think that that's one of the things that's going to happen in this movement. And I just think a whole lot of political leaders are going to come out of this. Young folk who don't look like traditional politicians are going to come from this. So that, yeah, you help me with that, because I'm struggling with this.
Yeah, so like definitely with Mayor Turner, Mayor Turner is not unapologetically Black. So, when it's time to hold people accountable, it shouldn't matter what your ethnicity is. Right. When it's time to hold people accountable, that's what we have to come together and do. And in our circumstances, right, in our life, the way our government operates, our day-to-day life operates, you can't do it without the legislation. You can't do it without city council. You cannot get this done without government. Right. So, we have to hold them accountable, and also we have to produce people to run that we believe in, that will commit to their word, commit to their promises. We're going to have to do that. It's not a cookie cut type thing that we're in right now. So it's going to take everything that every organization is doing right now is being very productive, and we just need to keep doing it, but also figure out how we can take it all to the next level and combine it together to push through.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I think it's about building the relationships needed and really understanding that I don't think people truly understand that this monster of these institutions that we're fighting is so immense that it's going to take every ideology, it's going to take every angle, it's going to take every pressure point for us to really get to this world and get to this tomorrow where we're all truly free and liberated. And I think if we're not careful, we'll, and I'm talking about Black folks, I think we'll fall victim to what happened in, the liberation movements of the 60s, where if you was peaceful, that wasn't the right way. If you're too radical, that wasn't the right way, and it caused that conflict. I think we have to be able to respect each other's different strategies, but also have those relationships where we can hold each other accountable, right? Especially for people, like me, I consider myself somebody that plays the inside game. And you have to hold people like me accountable because we see it, right? Just like you all said, we see Black people in politics, in power, that are they're not held accountable to the community. So when people criticize me, I feel some type of way about it because I know me, but also I have to listen to that, right? Because again, I think James Foreman talked about it so great in his book, Locking Up Our Own, where he talks about how Black politicians were part of the '92 crime bill, right? And how they were talking about, well, we just want to lock up the bad Black people. Like, no, that's not
right.
So yeah, so like I get it. Like I think we have to speak truth to power and understand the tension that comes more so with Black folks in a political space. But also, we have to hold the people. And I might get in trouble for this. I don't know the word, like I guess the true revolutionaries or the true radicals, because I do think it's a time and place for protest and direct action. But I also think we have to be careful about asking Black people to be martyrs, right? I'm not really down with that no more. Like Dave Chappelle said in his 846 special, Black people are not looking for any more heroes through death. Like we've done that. I'm not really particularly a fan of that, and I get, I respect the people that are down to that extreme, and I think most of us are if need be, but I think we need to be able to find a way to survive and thrive and fight and make sure we can all be in this thing together, so it's just really about building those relationships as best we can and holding each other accountable so we don't get lost in the sauce.
Thank y'all so much. And in talking about accountability, we have a Texas state legislative session coming up early next year. How can Texas lawmakers be held accountable for their role in policing across the state? And a second part to this question, aside from policing, what are other policy areas that folks should keep in mind that also affect Black lives in Texas?
So in regards to lawmakers being held accountable during the 87 legislative, it's going to be imperative that all the grassroots organizations come together and join the champions that are standing for our causes. This means we have to expect to see a new version of the Sandra Bland bill to come out. I heard that the Black Caucus is actually working on compiling such a bill as we speak. What we should hope to see is all the champions coming together to pass legislation. Many criminal justice reform advocates followed the new Sandra Bland bill, which was last session. We remember how that bill unraveled at the last hour, how those representatives, were never held responsible for that. And, while those involved in party and affiliated with the Democratic Party members and things like that was invited to these discussions to actually, talk to the representative that was involved in killing the bill, the mass community wasn't involved in those conversations because it wasn't aired on our local traditional media. So to properly hold our elected officials accountable in the 87 session, right, it's a few things we're going to have to do, right? We're going to have to support our independent radio and media that speak truth to power. It's some great online stations that they deliver really quality news about issues like murder in Black America, economic growth, prison and jail situations, like just changing the way the district attorney office prosecute the accused community. So imagine if millions of grassroots reformers of justice began listening to our independent stations, then we could be able to ensure that, everyone was getting the best information in that moment, right? And we could ensure that we were supporting these stations financially so that they would be able to continue being honest. Like when I think about it, the far right independent media is loud because their base make donations to keep their stations going, right? And so we also just have to work with legislation and things like that. We just gonna have to do it all.
Yeah. So our work in Texas have got to stop being so single focused and single issue. Because because the work has got to, in some kind of way, we got to find this. We got to find our way to doing advocacy here more intersectional. And that's not happening. It's either this or it's that. And so when we talk about organizations on the ground coming together, all our issues are important. And so as the Afiya Center may be there talking a lot about abortion rights, that's very important. That's very important to the freedom of the people, because people got to have a right to choose. If you take away liberty, you've taken away liberty, and you don't get to pick and choose that. And so we pick and choose what's important for us, and it keeps us divided. And if we can all find a way to stand on this together and have the conversation in that way, because for us, the right to choose is also a form of economic freedom. It's also a form of environmental freedom. It is also about the criminal justice system. It's about all those things, and we do it all at the same time. We've got to work and make sure that folk have access to health care. We can't keep letting Texas get a pass on not passing some kind of measure here, because our folk are dying. Like, they're literally dying. Because they're not making enough money. They don't have access to health care. People have pre-existing conditions. People are going in and out of jail. People getting out of jail and cannot get a job when they get out. People cannot buy a place. Can I get a place to live? Like, all of this stuff is the same stuff. The same people going to jail are the same people who are denying rights, reproductive health care rights, are the same people who don't have a place to live, are the same people who can't get a grant to go to school, are the same people who don't have money to get a car, who's living on housing in communities that don't have public transportation. These are the same people. And so we've got to find a way in Texas to work intersectionally and not doing the single issue, single focused work. I thought I had on my Andre Lloyd t-shirt, but I don't. I talk about it all the time. We cannot fight these single issue fights because we don't live single issue lives. It just don't happen that way. So when we are protesting, if we are at the Austin Capitol talking about abortion rights, let me tell you, we are also demanding that folk get to live when they have a baby. We are also demanding that women are not shackled when they're in prison. We're also making sure that trans women don't keep getting killed and nobody cares about it. We are also, we're doing it all. We don't get a break. And if TOPS or somebody call us, we down there for that too. And we want to make sure that we're ending voter suppression. We got to do it all. And the only way we do it all is if we're sitting at the table coming together with a plan. Like, we got to have a plan. We got to have a plan now. COVID has not stopped them from meeting. COVID has not. They're going to be ready for us when we get there, the first Tuesday in January. They're going to already be ready. We're going to already be ready. Chaz's organization going to be ready. The Afiya Center is going to be ready. TOPS is going to be ready. But how about if we come down there coming at them like they come at us? And we got to stay ready. We can't stop. We got to keep doing this. We cannot stop. And so, yeah, we literally got to do this together, and we've got to do it intersectionally if we plan to win.
Yeah, and I just want to hop on something Marsha said. I think I think while we are talking about or how the conversation is centered around police, it's so much bigger than that, and I don't want it to get lost in just police. Because yes, we do need to rethink public safety. Yes, we do need to pull resources out of police departments and police budgets so we can put that money into the community and let the community come up with their own solutions, which is really nothing new. This is all something I just learned, abolitionist feminist theory, right? But, again, Black women have been talking about these things for years. We as a society and indigenous women, women of color, talking about this for years, and we just never listen. And but anyways, to Marsha's point, it's like we have to not get so lost in the sauce and think this is only about police. Like, because if we do that and they come up with some BS, camera body law, or whatever, that's not really moving the needle as far as we need to. We have to understand that, while police is a part of it, we have to understand that police is a part of it because they are over policing Black and brown neighborhoods. They're over policing Black and brown neighborhoods because of, either no or very little access to economic gain and health and education. So it creates this, this pool of just, you know, poverty and despair, and that's why we have police in those places, right? So until we really understand that, yes, this moment, like today, it's about police, but we cannot let it only be about that, because it's so much bigger than that. And I, you know, I agree. Until we learn that the police struggle is a health struggle, it is an education struggle, like, then, you know, we'll be fighting in circles for years. So I just wanted to piggyback on what Marsha said, because we have to learn how to put all this stuff together and fight simultaneously for all these things.
Thank you again, everyone. And so now thinking a little bit more in terms of a call to action, when thinking of next steps to center Black lives in Texas, what are some calls to action for communities across the state, for these communities to do themselves and for elected officials?
I mean, you know, I think, you know, I'm trying to be politically correct, because I don't want to upset nobody, but I think we understand that the community always has had their own solutions. What we need is not even progressive. We need visionary leadership in city government, locally, on the state level, federally, to just really, the only thing I need from a politician is to be a part of the solution when it comes to the economic shifts. Like, I don't need you, we don't need you to come up with a program, because the program ain't gonna fix it, because it can't do what it needs to do. You know, because the city and really the government as a whole is limited because, you know, of their own laws and policies that they create. So we don't need that. Just take the money, which is Black and brown folks' money anyway. If we want to be 100 with that, let's take that money out of the government and put it back into community, and let us do what we need to do, right? If we had more doulas, if we had more, you know, funding going into to people that can do at-home births, we wouldn't have a Black maternal mortality rate issue that we have, right? But because they don't understand that, and it doesn't make sense to them, they don't fund it, or they don't buy into it, or, you know, instead of putting, like in Austin, $400 million into the police budget, give us half of that and let us do our own crisis intervention. Let us have our own trauma centers. Like we know what to do with our communities. Because again, and I'm not saying this as just like a platitude, and I'm not saying this for brownie points, Black women have been having this conversation for years, right? And I encourage people to go back and read, you know, not only the people we know, right, like the Angela Davis, the Bill Hooks, but go like read some of the, you know, the Joy James and the Claudia Jones that I'm just not learning about, because Black women have been leading this way for years, and I'm just so appreciative that they even let me open my mouth. But I also know that, you know, I'm following and I'm watching their lead, because again, none of this is new. Like, we're just finally getting to a place of like, okay, let's try it. And even with the conversations around defunding police and abolishing police, we're still not giving Black women the credit, because like that is something that Black women have been talking about for years. Right. You know, again, I say all this to say, like, this could really be a 5-minute conversation. We just need to listen to Black women, like, and the world would not be in peril with
Black women. That's Black women. Period.
Nah, if I could, like, you know, so we see it at 3x, right? We see it at 3x, right? One, we have to be sure that we are organized collectively to ensure every day. Now, these are some intense acts, right? But to ensure that every day of the next 87 session, we have at minimum 100 organizers standing with our champions and being our eyes and ears in the moment. You know, it's organizations like CLEAT was able to do what they did last year because they had people there all day, and our organizers that was there, our grassroots leaders that was there, you know, like Chaz and them, they was there all day. So we wasn't as represented as we should have been. So actions like these, sending organizers to Austin for an entire session, it costs money. So people, you know, can help with fundraising or making donations to the cause of having 100 grassroots organizers at session every day from beginning to end. The second thing, right? all progressive grassroots organizations must come together or make every effort, right, to work together alongside champions, right, to create meaningful legislation that can and will get passed, right? It's pointless to put legislation up there that's not going to make it through. So we all have to come to the table and work together to make sure that the legislation that's presented are accepted and can get passed, and it's going to be meaningful and not the same yada, 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 right? And then lastly, while we are organizing and building collectively to make changes, some of us have to get involved in party politics, right? I know everybody in the grassroots community don't want to do it, and that's cool, but some of us are going to have to do it. You know, we made some really great changes, right? The Democratic Socialists made some really great changes this past Democratic Democratic Convention, and that was because they was involved. So we really have to learn and understand how, you know, progressive party politics work, and we have to do our part to ensure that it's going to work for all of us.
So it basically, you know, it's been said. There's not anything I can say that's not been said, you know, except for we really got to trust the people on the ground. We got to trust the people that's closest to the problem in order to, and Chase said it earlier, we got to trust the people who's closest to the problem to provide the solution. Like literally, we've got to trust that. Years ago, when I first started doing this work, I joined this organization called the Campaign to End AIDS. And the Campaign to End AIDS, it was groundwork organizers. It was people who were living with HIV, who needed to see this epidemic end. And that was probably one of the most powerful groups I have ever been in. Like that's where I got my teeth sharpened, or whatever you call it, because I came straight out of corporate into that world. And I learned what could happen when you give power to the people who are most impacted by the problem that you're trying to fix. Now, a lot of people get to stand on the shoulders of that organization today, but I saw that organization single-handedly take on the President of the United States and people to demand that there be a plan of action to end the HIV epidemic in this country. Demanded that. And I followed these people all across the country, and these were unified, and they were unified by that particular cause. Not that one thing, but all of the things that led into this larger thing that we were looking at, which was HIV. And again, these were not the most educated people. They were not all of this, but they were the people. They were the people who were closest to the problem. They know what needed to happen to end the epidemic. What they needed was for the people who had the power to exert the will to do the changes that needed to happen in order for us to end this epidemic. Now we see a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon now, looking at it in a different kind of way. But I saw that happen over a span of a couple of years, and we organized folk around the country, marches and stuff, but we had some specific demands that we asked for, and we were not backing away from those demands. And so I learned that, and I know what happened when you provide the people who are the closest to the problem with the opportunity to solve it. Because I will say this, and I've been saying it forever, the power is always in the hands of the people. That's where the power lies. And so the people, when the people understand that they got the power, then that's when things change. As long as politicians know that the people don't understand that they got the power, they're going to keep playing games. But the power is in the hands of the people. And we got to let the people know that they got power. And those of us who have this knowledge or whatever, we can't weaponize the knowledge, use the knowledge to build ourselves. We got to share this with the people on the street. We got to share this with the people. We've got to share this, because if we do that, we'll have 100 people at this legislative session every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you all so much. And turning to the comments section real quick, a lot of folks are calling Marsha for president already.
I think I got some records. I got some stuff that I don't tell nobody about.
We have a question here for Chaz from Mickey. How do we get Black people back into the Austin city limits? What's the remedy?
Wait, I think first we got to get the Black people that live here to actually come out. You know, I think like we have a pretty good base of people in the city. Even if you look at the 8 or 7% of a million people, that's enough people to build an economic and political base. But again, it goes back to building relationships. And the only relationships that I see is like people in the Facebook group that are always, and it's really hard to build relationships on social media, right? Because somebody say something and they don't mean it in a way, but you don't know how to read it and things just go down. But Black people often just need to find out whatever organizations work for them and just really just get out the house. Because I don't think we understand, like, our presence is a political, in my opinion, is a form of political disruption, right? Like when you go to, well, not Starbucks, because Starbucks got canceled again. We'll see how long that lasts. But when you go occupy these white spaces, if we choose to occupy these white spaces, sometime, right? I'm not saying don't patronize our Black businesses, but that is a part of disruption, in my opinion. So I really think the more people see us outside the house, and we stop letting Austin be so white and let them occupy everything, I think other people will see that and be inclined to come on down. So at least that's my goal. That's my wish.
Thank you, Chaz. A question from Renee. She said, how do you find organizations? So maybe in general, how can folks get plugged into organizations and their communities across Texas?
Like usually if you Google grassroots organizations near me, right, it'll pop up. Plenty of organizations should pop up. But also, if you're on social media, right, and you can be following different organizations. I know that Texas Organizing Project, if we are in San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston, Harris County. So if you want to get involved with Texas Organizing Project, you could go to our website, which is www.organizetexas.org. And there's ways to become a member or to, sign up to get information. But you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, right? And keep up with some of the events that we're doing and that we be hosting. And so basically, like that's how you find them. It's not a lot of hard work to do, especially when you're looking at what's happening right now with all of the protesting, right? There's so many Black organizations, Black and brown organizations out here at these protests that if you just say, hey, I want to get involved, somebody should be there that can guide you, right? So,
yeah. And if you just Google, I know if you're looking for something specific, if you Google Black women, surprisingly, the Afiya Center will pop up. If you Google Black women in Texas or whatever, we'll pop up. That's how we found out we were a fund. Somebody wanted some money for an abortion. I didn't even know we were doing abortion funds, but they Googled us, and that's how we were born. But also, it happened over the last couple of weeks. We have been talking about doing a bail fund because it's very necessary. But when stuff jumped off on the street, I assumed that people just trusted the Afiya Center. And folks started sending us money before we even posted that we were a fund. Like, I had to call my team and say, hey, y'all, we are a bail fund. Like, folks are sending us money. We got to do something with this. And so I think that's, if you just got to go the old school way. You got to go in there and look, whatever it is you're looking for, it will pop up. And then you can do some research if you want to make sure that that's an organization that fit for you and see just what it is that they're doing.
Nice. And then, Koretta, we have a few folks commenting, asking how can they find out about those independent radio stations that you'd mentioned earlier?
Also, right, you can Google progressive independent radios. Off top of my head, right, I know there's one, Politics Done Right. I know that on Facebook you have podcasts like the podcast with Damian Jones, right? You have, it's you just have to like do the research, right? If you just go on Google and you look up some of these different, you just go in Google and you just put in there Black podcasts, or Black political podcast, or Black and brown political podcasts, right? Like all of these, all of these should pop up. I don't know why all of a sudden I'm having a problem with talking, but all of these should pop up. and you should be able to get connected. But we definitely, I think that would be a good idea if somebody want to do it. I know I don't have the capacity to do it, but to actually create, you know, like a list of all of the independent media outlets that we have out here, so that when we do get ready for the 87th session, people know where to tune in, so they can get the, you know, the accurate information in the moment. And that'll also help us organizers, you know, be able to jump quick on organizing in our respective counties.
Thank you so much. And just thank you again for all of the information and the advice, and the work that y'all are providing and that y'all do. And self-preservation and sustainability are so important in this type of work. Do y'all have any advice as to how folks in this sphere of work can take care of themselves during this time, especially folks that are newer? And also, how do y'all take care of yourselves? How do y'all stay grounded in this movement?
So you have to step away. You just have to. When you think about the impact that COVID had on us, the mental impact that had on us, and then to have to move into this, well, it's not a move into it because it never stopped for us. One of the things I do now, I get up in the morning and I walk. Like literally, I don't have my phone. Which this is a sad example because I literally have 2 or 3 different apparatuses going here at the same time. But I walk. I breathe. And you have to step away, and you pick and choose which battles you're going to fight. For me right now, I'm not going to go to the street. I'm just not. I don't apologize for it. I'm just not. That's not my fight this go round. But I will keep raising money to get folk out of jail. So yeah, I step away from the work and walk, and I pick and choose the battles I'm going to fight in this particular phase of the war.
Yeah, you know, I think for me, I'm learning how to be okay with my strategy and how I fight for Black liberation. Also, I highly encourage people just to unplug from social media as much as you can. So social media will have you feeling a certain type of way, even about some of the people you fighting for. So, you know, I think just being able to unplug from social media is important. 2 other things that I've really been working on is like physical self-care. I've just recently started getting like massages and doing Reiki and deep breath stretching. And it's I didn't know how much I needed it until like the masseuse was telling me and showing me where all this tension was in my body. And then I think the last thing too is giving yourself grace and showing grace, because that can also be like a very relieving thing for me, at least. Like, you know, like today, you know, we Austin Justice Coalition and this group Capitol View Arts did this mural about it says Black Austin Matters here on Congress in Austin. And you know, people in the community feel, you know, it's just a bunch of conversation and dialogue, which is, you know, always healthy. But you know, just giving people grace, because I know they don't know all the facts and they don't know the whole story. And also allowing myself, you know, grace to know that, you know, I think this is what we needed to do, and it's doing what I expected it to do. And just really, you know, we gotta rest. You know, like we just have to rest. Like we have to understand that although, you know, I think I would like to see the end of this fight and like we just finally win, we beat the system. I have to be real and understand that that may not be the case. And all I can do is be sure to plant that seed for that tree that will, like, you know, grow the shade that somebody else can benefit from. And just be okay with that. You know, do your part, take care of yourself, rest, and allow yourself and other people grace is how I've been getting through. And a little bit of alcohol.
Yeah, a little bit of alcohol. You know, we're all going through trauma right now, right? We're seeing the death of innocent Black people, you know, on TV, on social media. It's everywhere. We're seeing people being found hung from trees. We're seeing, you know, fights within the police force itself, where, you know, you have police officers are stepping up and joining a protest, and then, their fellow officers getting upset and, resigning from that place just, to cause problems. We're in a time of, everything seems like it's panic and things like that. So this is like one of those best times to invest in like some form of meditation and some self-centering. It's time to invest in ourselves, right? To learn and to study. A lot of the issues dealing with the police union and Black and brown communities, are from financial hardships and financial difficulties. So, the fact that a lot of things are shut down right now, this is a perfect time to start learning how to become financially independent, right? Yeah. It's time for us to organize as a community, healing spaces, right? Mm-hmm. Healing spaces that include volunteer, psychological organizations and practices and people and stuff like that. And so, I basically just try to follow my own advice, that I'm giving to everybody else. I try to make sure I make time to, just put myself in a space of meditation to, ground and release things that I don't have control over, so that I can make space for the things that I can change.
Thank you, Koretta, and thank you, Marsha and Chaz. We've now reached the end of our conversation, and it has been such a powerful conversation. On behalf of Progress Texas, I want to thank our panelists for your time and for your leadership across the state. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again for joining us.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.